And speaking of long movies,
Oh,
we watched Greed, which is a 1924 film, silent film,
Mm-hmm.
by the written and directed by Eric von Stroheim, and it was
Who's
based
in
off of
Sunset
a
Boulevard?
yes, the Butler in
Yes.
Sunset Boulevard. You don't know this, but he was in The Grand Illusion. He's been in a bunch of other movies that I haven't seen, but those are the two I have.
Yeah.
And it was based on a 1899 novel by author Frank Norris called McTeague, which is a terrible name for a novel. Never name your novel after a character. It tells you nothing about the story. Sorry,
You're
I had to
not
comment on
wrong.
that.
You're not
And
wrong.
it is.
And
It
McTeague is a
tells.
terrible name.
Yeah, Greed is that was an improvement. That was maybe Eric von Stroheim's biggest piece of genius.
Yeah.
But it tells the story of John McTeague, who starts out as a miner and then becomes a dentist and then marries, and there's money problems along the way. And I'm not really sure how else to describe this film, which is
Yeah. Well, I think we should. I think
we
what's
have to talk about
important.
the history of this
Yeah, we did.
before we
We
get into anything.
definitely have to talk about the history. So Eric von Stroheim originally created this film, and the original cut of this film was 9.5 hours long.
And it was screened to like 10 people.
It was screened to a
on an
public.
afternoon.
Yeah, 9.5 hours long.
And I think it was a somewhat Irving Thalberg. Irving Thalberg they had run into each other before. He was a producer on another project of his, and he took away the control over that project and got Stroheim fired. And Stroheim left that and went over to MGM to make Greed. And then a few years, and then down the line, Thalberg arrived, took over at MGM, and then took over the project again from Stroheim after the 9-hour cut was shown.
Yes. Which blows my mind because I was going to blow my brains out at 4 hours.
Well, okay, so there's a 9-hour edit, which is now lost in time forever.
Yes, unfortunately.
And then the studio cut it down to 140 minutes. And there was a reconstruction like
in
a decade
1998 by Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah, 2 decades ago. And this is the most unique reconstruction of a film I've ever seen.
And this is the one we both watched because initially
this is for rent on Amazon Prime. Probably the easiest way of attaining it.
Yeah, I joked that I'd watch the 2 hour version, but I don't know what compelled me. I thought, no, I'm going to see it in the most complete way possible. So I rented the 4-hour version. And when Jacob says this is unique, it's because I'd say a good third of the movie, if not more, more. A good half of the movie is reconstructed using stills from lost footage.
And intertitles. Stills and intertitles.
Stills, intertitles, post zooms. So it's literally still images of scenes that are lost to history with the titles thrown in between. And this is my biggest problem with the movie. This movie reminded me a lot of The Magnificent Ambersons, obviously. And interestingly enough, this movie is at one point was Orson Welles' favorite movie. He had seen the 2-hour version, mind you, but it reminded me a lot of the Magnificent Ambersons in that I can see the potential there. The Magnificent Ambersons, it's potential that you have to assume, whereas this, it's potential that you are shown. But
I disagree with you there, but
I can't. I'm looking at all the stuff that was cut from the 2-hour version. I think that is the better movie. Because it's so hard to get behind just still images. And I feel bad that his movie was cut, but this is an unfinished movie. And you do not need to see all 4 hours of this.
If we were to do this again, knowing what we know now,
yes,
I think we should have watched the shorter version.
Uh-huh.
And then if one of us was feeling particularly crazy, could have watched the longer
Jacob.
version just for some context.
It would be Jacob. One of us.
Yes, it would have been. Yes. But I need that 2-hour version eventually to put more context into this, because that's the version that people are voting on for this list.
Yes.
And with the version I saw, even with just considering the footage there, I didn't really care for this film.
Neither did I. And I feel bad saying that.
I do, I guess, but I don't, because I know the history of film is often checkered with these films that are
homework films.
Yes, it's a homework. It's a film that its reputation has grown as it builds up this kind of presence in a room. Like, regardless, like when you hear about someone, you hear so much, and then you're in the same room. It doesn't matter what kind of person that person is. They could be the shittiest person in the world, but you are in this presence of someone you've heard so much about, right? And there's this immediate reaction to that. And you kind of have to get over that. And I was kind of disappointed, honestly, at some points of the film. I don't know where to begin with this, because it's so long and there's so much.
It's so long, and this was, the runtime was not justified. It really wasn't, and I feel bad saying that. But the thing is, at some point when I was watching this, I felt bad because I'm like, I feel like the silent films we had so far on this list get a bad rep, just because obviously they tend to feel like homework films, and you have to understand the context. But then I just out of curiosity, I'm like, okay, let me go through the silent films I really enjoy. The General, City Lights, The Gold Rush, Sunrise. In all those movies, I was watching them, I'm like, okay, there are elements of this where you need to know the history, but I'm still entertained. There are visual gags. They make full use of the sets and the characters, and there's some impressive cinematography given the time. Greed is just boring.
It's a film where I look at it and I see perhaps influences regarding storytelling.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it good, because there are films like Quentin Tarantino has stolen a lot of stuff from bad movies. It doesn't make those movies good just because they're influential on his work. And I'm not saying this movie's bad. I don't think Greed is bad.
No,
it's very good for the time. And considering the time it was made, considering like if I was Orson Welles back in the 30s or whenever watching this, and like, wow, this is really cool, because it's certainly unique in the pantheon of silent films. It's trying something different.
It's very ambitious as well.
It's like it's like the precursor to The Godfather, but in a very crude way.
Yeah.
It's like beginning cinema. And there were so many ideas in this that I have seen later on, and I feel bad saying this, but it's true, they've just been done so much better.
They really have. But that's the thing, is that I didn't know until you just said it that this was adapted from a novel. And the whole time I was watching this movie, I thought, damn, this is a really good book. This would be an amazing book, but it is boring as a movie. I think a huge part of that is the best silent movies are the ones where it is like, it leans so heavily on the visual language that the text only comes when it's mandatory. This is just a regular movie with so much dialogue.
I was going to say that I found new appreciation for Chaplin and Buster Keaton and all of them, Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
That it watching people talk and not hearing anything. And I have to wonder, like, they must have known that that's not interesting.
It's not.
Like, inherently as a creative, why do you think that showing a conversation between two people about something, it doesn't matter what it is, and just seeing their lips move, and you only get like one sentence of descriptive of like, this is what's happening. what is engaging about that? And then you look at other stuff that's happening at the same time, other silent films that manage so much through visual storytelling.
Yeah.
And not to say this film doesn't have some visual storytelling. It has some very interesting shots. And
not enough.
I took screenshots of a few. And I mean this charitably. These shots are like one every 10 minutes at best.
I think it...
And most of it is just like shot, reverse shot of people talking.
I know. The funniest part is there's one point where I'm like, okay, now it's getting interesting visually. And that was when they go to Death Valley. And I'm like, we're 3.5 hours into the movie.
Okay, here's the thing. I had spoilers. I'm not really going to recommend Greed. I think if you're really interested in film history, don't watch the reconstructed version.
Watch the 2-hour version, please.
Yeah, watch so you don't have to deal with the still images thrown in.
So many still images.
Yeah, waste of time. Glad I watched it, but not necessarily.
I don't even know if I'm that glad.
Well,
just to interrupt
I have
you
an
real quick.
informed opinion now.
Yes.
So that's why I'm glad.
To interrupt you real quick, about 2 hours into this movie, I seriously considered not finishing it, reading the plot synopsis, acting as if I finished it. At this point, I was like, okay, everyone always says there's a lot of people who want to start a podcast. They don't understand the devotion it takes. I'm like, this is my make or break moment. This is where I can say I'm giving this podcast 110%, or I'm saying I'm just coasting. And I gave it 110% because I finished that stupid movie.
Well, I appreciate it.
Oh, but continue.
I hope you did it for the film history too. Just
maybe
a little, like 2% of your motivation. I'm joking, but I think from both of us, only if you're interested in film history is the only application I feel this.
Even
this
then,
film
there
is
are better movies.
There is.
Intolerance felt like forever, and this is a whole hour longer than Intolerance.
Okay, we're gonna get into spoilers, so that's it. I'm struggling between Intolerance and this because Intolerance is made by a racist, but I kind of was more engaged with that one. So,
well, okay, yes, but Intolerance also had a lot more ambition.
Yeah,
they built that Babylon set.
This one has ambition as a drama.
Yes, it has narrative ambition. It does not have visual ambition, and for this, it needed that for a 4-hour-long silent movie. And this is going to sound like a horrible criticism, but it's true. That main actor was so ugly, I hated looking at him.
I think the other guy, Marcus Schuler.
Yes.
He, honest to God, I thought his appearance changed every other shot.
It did towards the end.
It took me a while. Like, is this the same person? His hair's changing.
Yes.
His facial, I don't know. But everyone just, man, the 20s were a different time.
I feel so bad because the main actor, he is just large. He looks sweaty all the time. His hair is...
Considering the lighting on those sets.
Yes.
Yeah.
His hair is terrible. So bad. His eyebrows
If ever there was a
huge.
set that smelled like sweat.
Oh my God. And again, it's one of those things where at the end I'm like, oh, he looks decent with a beard. Oh wait, 3.5 hours have already passed. It's too late.
So I had always heard about the end of Greed, that it was so... Obviously, the thing that Greed is most known for is that it's black and white, except for certain things in the movie are gold, painted in gold. Oh my God. And the very end is all in gold.
Yes.
And I was always under the assumption, I thought this was a brilliant idea, and yet apparently this was my own idea, so let me know if you had this. I thought it was going to slowly get more and more gold.
No.
Did you know about the gold going in?
I did not.
Okay, I did. I think it was in a Cinefix video where they're like, it gets more, there's more gold as it goes on, and it's bathed. And I thought, the idiot I am, giving the film more credit, that it was slowly more and more as the greed built up, there'd be more and more elements of gold in the frame.
Yeah.
But no, it just suddenly a light switch turns on and suddenly it's all gold. And the thing that disappointed me the most about this film is it's not even all that much about greed.
It really isn't. I understand what this movie is trying to be about, but I refuse to believe that a woman would let her life go to shit to that extent before she touched any of her gold. I understand the movie is obsessed with this idea of greed as something you don't want to lose, that it's part of your identity, but at what point do you not say, "Okay, I'll take some of the money out"?
You don't need a lot. Like, just take.
No, you had
5,000. Take 100 out.
And they want to buy this house that's $35. And I'm like, you have $5,000. Also, to jump back real quick on the yellowing, I read, okay, at first I read this, a little synopsis on Wikipedia, not the plot synopsis, but just, general information. And I saw that, something that said that Eric von Stroheim had like personally himself colored in these things, whatever, went frame by frame, adding the yellow. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Until I actually see it, and it looks terrible. It looks so bad. It looks like he went over it with a highlighter. There's no understanding of lighting as far as how light is reflected off of gold surfaces. It just looks so bad.
I was more paying attention to how boring it was, so I didn't mind as much. But it also is, these are basic effect kind of things.
I know, but
I like it in principle.
I do like it in principle, but 2 hours into it, I'm well past of how boring it is. I'm looking for something of value. And I'm like, okay, this visual element is interesting, but it's botched so terribly that I'm like, okay, this could have been, you could have thought of this right before it premiered and just dotted everything with a fucking marker.
I suppose I was under the impression that the film was like a much more like dramatic, like adventure, like grandiose idea of greed. Like there was going to be a treasure and the guy was trying to get at it. Mm-hmm. And none of that was happening. And it was more of a kind of down-to-earth drama about how greed can like tear people's lives apart. But even then, it just felt so kind of theatrical and forced. And that might just be a product of the times.
But there's nothing wrong with it being theatrical if you can get the full weight of their performance, which you can't because it's broken up by boxes. Oh,
you're just watching them silently, like mouth off.
But it's crazy because you'll see the woman says something, and then the man says something, and then the woman says something, and then it'll be a text from one person. It's only half of what they said. I'm like, what are they saying?
Why do I need to see the whole conversation?
Yeah.
Right? Here's the thing. I thought so much about this, the movie, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Yes. Same.
That is
especially towards the end.
One hell of a film about similar themes, particularly near the end, that is just so much better. And I have to like fully recommend like that's a film I'd fully recommend. This one not so much. But if the point of developing a theme is that your audience takes away something, I didn't take away anything because I felt that these characters were just stupid.
Exactly.
And there's nothing I needed to take away from it.
The whole time I was watching this, you can look through my YouTube history because I watched this on YouTube. My watching sessions were broken up with There Will Be Blood, Uncut Gems, Treasure of the Sierra Madre. So the whole time I'm thinking, okay, interesting, but there are so many movies that do this topic of greed so much better. And I want to give credit where credit's due, but I can't see anything of worth in this 4-hour movie.
There's other films that we've talked about where you see the influences, but you can also see some worth.
Yes.
And I do feel bad because I like Eric von Stroheim as an actor in some films.
Yes.
And this is the first film I've seen that he's directed. I feel bad for the man that his film was taken away from him. You mentioned The Magnificent Ambersons before, and I think The Magnificent Ambersons is a magnificent film, particularly in the first 2/3 when it's fully Orson Welles.
Agreed.
And there's a clear division. You can kind of pinpoint the moment in the film where it kind of gets out of hand. And that's why I can fully enjoy that film for most good 2/3 of the runtime. I'm there in genius filmmaking. And then you can kind of spend the end part of the film imagining what could have been. Mm-hmm. But here, there's nothing but imagination. You're left with nothing but how has this been done better?
Yeah, because with The Magnificent Ambersons, I watch it and I genuinely think if Orson Welles had full creative control, that would be his masterpiece. I think there's so much in that movie that I think is brilliant, and then you can tell where it gets cut out. And part of what I like, why I like the movie so much, is because I feel the sense of sympathy that he was robbed, that Orson Welles was kind of ruined by the production company. Here, I just I think, okay, they did the right move. I can only imagine what a 9.5 hour version of this movie was like. 2 hours seems perfect for this. It's probably still wouldn't be all that great, but are we we're in spoiler territory,
We're in
right?
spoilers, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you looked to see what the differences are?
Not really, no.
Okay. So the differences between the 4 hour version and the 2 hour version, they cut out the entirety of the two old people. I forget their names. Gardner and Maxis or whatever.
The
They
one
cut
that has
out-
there's a treasure that
Yes.
she keeps talking about and then doesn't talk about.
No. I'm talking about the two old people that spy on each other but never meet.
Oh, with their rooms used to be the same.
Yes.
Yes.
They cut all that out. And they cut out all of the one you were just talking about, the woman who's lying about the treasure. They cut all that out. They cut out the beginning where you see McTeague in his old home and his mother and his father dies. They cut all that out. They cut out the beginning of the happy marriage with him and his wife, and pretty much everything that is in the still image. They
It's
cut out.
not even that much. The marriage was just so all over the place.
It really was.
Like, I thought she was scared of him when they were dating, and then they're like after their marriage and her parents are leaving, she wants to spend more time with her parents than actually go up to the bedroom with her husband, which is like, oh, well, this is a bad sign for a marriage if that's what you're doing right after you're. So I never got the sense that it was actually like a good marriage to begin with. So there's no like development in that.
But then
there's no descent.
Yeah, then they fall deeper and deeper into their financial hole, and suddenly they care more for each other, which I'm like, okay, that would be the opposite.
That was only for a couple scenes. But.
Yeah. But yeah, they cut out a lot of stuff, and even when I think about what would be left over, I'm like, okay, I guess it's more watchable now, but that doesn't mean it's good.
That's a good way of putting it. It's more watchable.
I'm not kidding you. I was suffering through the last 2 hours of this movie. I did not think I would miss Salo.
I think I watched the first hour and a half on my TV, solely on the film, and then I watched the rest of the film on one of my computer monitors and was doing some things on my other computer monitor.
Yeah, same.
And I think I tuned back in fully for the last half hour or so.
That's where it gets a little more interesting in the Death Valley stuff. But can I just talk about the ending? Because I think the ending sucks.
Sure. I'm searching my soul for what I liked about this film and trying to understand what people saw in it, what people still see in it, apparently, all the way back to 2012. And even the ending, it's interesting in theory, but the execution is just so crude and rough. And
it is an interesting theory, or interesting in theory, but it's so anticlimactic. When you think about just where it ends, I mean, yes, you could say that it's a sort of damnation. He's in the closest thing to hell on earth, but I don't know. It just feels like such a weird place to end it.
And you can't really say he deserves to be there if it's a metaphor for like hell or something. Like if it's a descent into madness, I don't think it's justified or earned. He's just kind of a drunk oaf. And he's been that since the beginning of the film. There's no like moral descent, or he tries to kill someone in the first 2 minutes of the film. He throws someone off a cliff and surprisingly the person survives.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And then he kills his wife later on. Spoilers. And you can't really help but feel that he's been like that the whole time, which is fine if there's some kind of arc in the middle where he's trying to reform, but you never really get that. He's just trying to get a job as a dentist.
He's
as a crack dentist.
Shitty at the beginning, he's shitty at the end.
Every modern screenwriting book is going to talk about character arcs, character growths, what's like the charting, the beginning and the end, and there is none, really, that matters. So, yeah, so what were you saying about the ending?
I don't know, it just... I understand where it fits thematically with the rest of the movie. I just feel like on a plot level, it's not a big enough ending to end a 4-hour movie. I don't think it really ends on a point of progression or big change. It just sort of dies out. And I want to know if this is the same ending as the 9.5 hour version, or if this is just something that they felt like was a good time to end it.
I think because I mean, death, they kind of both die at the end, so you can't really do much else.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess with how dramatic and theatrical, I assume that the ending would be equally so, but the ending just sort of ends. Obviously, the implications are pretty in line with the narrative, but I don't know. Just sort of ended. I mean, I was very happy that it was over.
So, a lot of people, a lot of film historians say, like, it's the great missing movie, and we touched on this earlier. It's not.
It isn't.
I don't want it.
The Magnificent Ambersons, the great missing movie.
Isn't there another one? I feel like. Do we still have all of Napoleon, don't we?
Yes.
I'm sure there's another one.
Yeah. We'll update you in the next episode.
So the BFI Best Films of All Time list. This is on it. This is on critics list.
Is it?
Yes, this is 87 on the adjusted critics list. So
there's nothing about it I feel a director would enjoy. See, that's the thing, is that I part of me wants to think that Orson Welles didn't love this film because it was a good film. He loved it because he's like, see, somebody else gets it when the production company fucks with you.
So we're talking about, it does deserve to be on the...
No. This was... I'm debating putting this at the bottom of the list as far as ranking my enjoyment of these movies, because there are technically worse films. I don't think I've suffered more than I did with this movie.
Well, hopefully this will be the bottom. I think it will be, but
yeah, at least Imitation of Life was laughably bad, and at least Intolerance is only 3 hours. Look where we're at now. At least this shitty movie was only 3 hours long.
At least the silent film. So these silent films are so long.
At least the racist propaganda was only 3 hours long.
At least you could get enjoyment out of that because it was racist.
But again, done. I'm done talking about this. I'm going to forget this movie in seconds. Please, tell me what's on the list for next week.
So next week, we have a movie from the director's list. This is our second film, I believe, that was on both lists.
Okay.
Let me just double check that. Yes. So the first was An Andalusian Boy, was on both.
Okay.
And this one is The Wild Bunch.
Thank God.
From 1969. Sam Peckinpah.
Yes. Okay.